that is probably different than a lot of people when it comes to this.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoy that. Yeah. So how's your day going?
Yeah, we see your slides now.
So I figured I'll just leave this slide up for just a moment, and then if he doesn't show up, I guess I'll just jump in. Yeah, I really enjoyed the prompt for this and all that. I'm probably focusing more on the God in concept than I am the discussion on the geopolitical part of the prompt. But I think, later on, if there is a discussion about it, I mean, I feel pretty good to have that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
Yeah, I think you can just go ahead because Lucas is not very accurate, punctual.
okay, fair enough. Okay, so I'm going to leave it on here. All right, so this is my presentation on God in and through all things. So I'm going to be introducing the God in concept that was given. So this concept of God in, right? This touches upon the delicate balance between the individual and the collective, or in other words, the self and the broader system in which it exists. So this balance, or rather dynamic interplay, this forms a cornerstone of my understanding of selfhood as informed by Minsky's model of the mind, which is the society of the mind, Luhmann's social systems theory, and Eastern Orthodox theology. Okay, so before I go into the full understanding, I want to just get a brief insert into ontology, because I think a lot of this needs to be based in ontology. So ontology is a branch of metaphysics that deals with the nature of being, existence, and reality, which is very important to us cyberneticians. It seeks to understand this fundamental nature of what exists, its structure, its relationships, and in the context of philosophy, theology, ontology often focuses on the study of existence from a higher, more abstract level, considering how different beings or realities relate to one another. And by the way, it looks like he joined. Hello. He's connecting to audio. I'll give it a moment.
Seems like it's pretty slow.
Yeah, it seems like he's having a little bit of troubles connecting to the audio. So can he see messages? Might be able to send him a chat.
Lucas. Oh, he's
Okay.
using a phone.
Okay, he's got his headphones in. We're one step closer.
Hi, Lucas.
Finally.
Finally, we can hear you.
The computer problems never end. Hi, Jason.
Okay. Economancer is going to give his presentation. He just started his first slide. I think
Yes, let
you
me
can
do. I really tried to hear you.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
No?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Finally, thank you.
Let me know when you're set up so I can, and I'll take a step back and reiterate the first part of this.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Austria's infrastructure is terrible.
Bruh.
Go ahead.
So, okay, Lucas, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start from the beginning of this real quick. That way you're not too far behind. But I'm pretty sure you would have it anyway. So, as I was saying, so ontology is a branch of metaphysics that deals with the nature of being, existence, and reality, which is of fundamental importance to cyberneticians. So this seeks to understand the nature of what exists, its structure, and its relationships, especially in the relational context. So in the context of philosophy and theology, ontology often focuses on the study of being from this study as an existence from a higher, more abstract level, considering how different beings or realities relate to one another. And hello, Gerard, how are you? So in the religious context, which is a part of the focus here, since we're talking about this God in concept, we're trying to concern ourselves with the understanding of the nature of the divine and how it relates to the material world. So in Orthodox theology, as well as Wolfgang Smith's Neoplatonic ideas, ontology becomes an essential part of the exploration of the relationship between the transcendent and the immanent aspects of existence. While Neoplatonic ontology has long resonated with Orthodox theology, Wolfgang Smith's focus on the movement of being adds depth and complexity to this connection, and this alignment is particularly evident when comparing Neoplatonic ideas, including Smith's contributions, as well as St. Maximus the Confessor's ontology of being, well-being, eternal well-being. And for Gerard, the reason why I'm doing this is because some of the things that I'm going to be discussing, ontology is extremely important to how that works in the overall scheme of this God in concept, which is why I'm going over ontology, even though it may be something people already know. All right. So in this idea of this ontology, we have a hierarchy of existence. So both Neoplatonic ontology and St. Maximus's ontology presents a hierarchical structure of existence. So it's emphasizing a movement from the transcendent one or being to the physical world or eternal well-being, which would be the conclusion. So this common structure allows for this alignment between these two systems. Right. So we have this movement of being, and then we have Maximus's ontological journey. So this is where Smith emphasizes the movement of being, and this parallels how St. Maximus, the Confessor's ontological journey from, again, being to well-being to eternal well-being. So in both of these perspectives, the view of existence, not as static states, but as a continual dynamic process where the divine energy of God continuously interacts with and shapes the world. So we have vertical causality from Wolfgang Smith, and this resonates quite clearly with St. Maximus's understanding of the divine energies, the logoi and the logos, influencing the world. So this idea of this higher level of realities, they causally impact the lower ones, and it's central to both Smith's Neoplatonic perspective and to St. Maximus's Orthodox ontology. And so what we're doing here is we're setting up this like integration of the transcendence and the immanence of existence. So both systems balance transcendence and immanence, and this is reflected in the divine or the one's unknowable essence. And then we have the knowable energies that permeate the world. So in both Wolfgang Smith's synthesis of Neoplatonic levels, this integrates well with St. Maximus's understanding of God's transcendent being and immanent well-being. And then we're moving into the cosmic symphony, right? So the Neoplatonic world souls concept, along with Smith's dynamic understanding of being, aligns with St. Maximus's view of the cosmic symphony, where all creation is interconnected and part of a divine orchestration. Now, all of this is to align this ontology. And what this does is this gives us a tapestry of interwoven philosophical and theological insights. And it reflects not only this shared structure and conceptual framework, but allows for a recognition of dynamic, interactive nature of existence. And the synthesis of ideas helps us understand this vision of human conditions, complexity, our relationship with the divine and the energies, and our interconnectedness with all of creation. So why does this even matter? And we'll get to the mind components of Minsky's model, but really we're trying to look at Eastern Orthodox theology and then this Neoplatonic ontology and trying to understand how this works from this cybernetic concept. And this is still being built out. But now I'm going to be moving into the Minsky's model of the mind. So that is the complexity or the society of the mind. So basically, our minds are not a singular, but a society of interacting mental processes. So Minsky's model shows this complex network akin to a society within the mind, and this echoes the God in. So the presence that is a part of us, yet transcends us. Because our minds are not these monolithic entities, but a society, and where we have all of these processes, we have the mind that is once part of us, the individual, and then more than us, which is the collective. And this is the echoing of that concept of the God in. And if you refer to the screen, we have the nous, which is the spirit, which is the noetic faculties. This is the divine energies coming into us. This informs the unconscious. So we have the two parts of the unconscious mind. We have like the autonomic nervous system, and this allows for automatic integration into the world. And then we have information processing. When we're taking in all the information, we do not subsume all of the information. It just comes in. This is informing the conscious mind. And in the conscious mind, we have these different pieces of the mind all interacting and working together, which leads us to being able to make decisions, to do decisions. But none of it is based on just one individual. So we have the psychic intersubjectivity of Niklas Luhmann, and then we have the social intersubjectivity of Niklas Luhmann. And all of this allows us to better understand the complexities of reality. That way we can rely on our fellow man to help us in our decision-making processes, which is what my work usually works on. Yes, it's the Society of the Mind. Thank you.
Is this your drawing based on somewhere here?
No, so it's my
It's your
extrapolation of it. Yeah, it's my
Okay.
extrapolation from his work. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I built this. And so again, the idea here is we have a mind. It is a society of components, and this shows us that there is something beyond the process of just the emergent property. And that's what I'm trying to focus on here, is that if we're looking at something and we think of this ontological movement that I was talking about earlier from both the St. Maximus the Confessor and Wolfgang Smith, we have this integration of transcendence and immanence. And so what's important here is that this noetic faculty, that star that's at the top, right, that is where we're having extreme amounts of information coming from the divine energies, right? Okay, so why do we have Luhmann's social systems theory here? So what we're doing here is we're emphasizing the relationship between the self and its environment. So the self continuously adapts, resonating with the idea of this God in, where we have the divine energies that shape the self's evolution. And so Luhmann's theory underscores the interdependent relationship between the self, which is the system, and its environment. So in this model, the self continuously adapts and evolves in response to its environment. Applying the concept of God to this model, we might regard the divine energies as an integral part of the self's environment, continuously shaping and informing the self's adaptation and evolution. Now, once we bring in the Eastern Orthodox theology, we get a spiritual dimension to this concept, which again helps integrate this God in. So in Eastern Orthodox theology, we introduce the concept of divine essence and energies and how they're distinct, where God's energies permeate the self, guiding its transformation. This is the embodiment of the God in. So this adds that profound spiritual layer to our understanding in our movement, in our process towards theosis, which was also what I was talking about with St. Maximus the Confessor's ontology of being, well-being to eternal well-being. So Eastern Orthodox theology's spiritual mention in this discussion, we have God's unknowable essence. It remains wholly transcendent, while his energies permeate and influence the world, and this includes the human self. This divine permutation, I propose, can be seen as the embodiment of that God in, manifesting the divine, intimately involved in the dynamic processes of the self, guiding its continual transformation and the growth through the process of theosis. And this picture here, this icon, this is the transfiguration. That light that is emanating from Christ going into the two prophets on the left and the right, Moses and Elijah, and then the two apostles down at his feet. This is an integration of the light that is into our bodies, into our souls, into our spirits through our noetic faculties that allow us to have more information input, right? So we're always getting this information, but some people are allowed more through their bending of the will to the Father, and so on and so forth. But what I'm getting here is that we have this concept from this vertical causality where we have this impact from the high into the low, integrating into our mind and looking at the mind as a society and seeing that this God in concept, this bounding of reality and how we view reality through both the psychic and social intersubjectivity is through this noetic faculty. And here are two quotes, one from the Holy Scriptures and one from St. Maximus the Confessor. I'm sure you've probably read it by now, but that is really important to understanding what theosis is that God became man such that man could become God. Now, it's not God as in a big G, but it's God as in becoming fully human is to become God-like. So integrating these aspects, and the reason why I brought this up, because there were three questions that was brought up in the initial intuition pump leading into this, right? So what I want to look here is that we have a dynamic self shaped by an internal mental process as the society of the mind, and that society of the mind is informed through this vertical causality by the divine energies. So this vision encapsulates the philosophical concept of God in recognizing our complexity and connection with divinity, and by integrating these three perspectives, we have this emergence of this complex and dynamic, continuously shaped person, this selfhood. And in this, we get the God in. We have our complex individuality, which is the system, and our interconnectedness with the others and the world, which also is a part of our intimate relationship with the divine. And so what I am proposing here is that this model has both value and significance in the individual and the collective, maintaining that neither exists in isolation, and that it embraces this God in concept, and it's not a dilemma, it's not a conflict. This has a profound manifestation of the dynamic interplay between selfhood, society, and divinity. So with the three questions posited, I'm sure you can read them. The first one, it's essentially if there is predetermination, this is boredom because human wisdom doesn't do anything because everything is fixed. My response to the first part is that when we think of this issue of divine predetermination and its implications for human wisdom isn't bland because it is a direct result of the noetic faculties, the energies of God that manifest in the deep self, as we were talking about earlier, when reflecting upon God in deep contemplation. And this comes from St. Gregory of Palamas and the Uncreated Light. And while it is true that Eastern Orthodox theology posits God as the creator of all things, it does not necessarily follow that everything is fixed and unchangeable. Orthodox theology emphasizes the concept of synergy, a cooperative effort between God and humans that allows for human free will and active participation in the relationship with God. So it is a relational construct. So this Orthodox theologies, God's uncreated energies permeating the world means that God's presence actively interacts with and influences our mental processes, thoughts, and wisdom. So this interaction is dynamic, not predetermined, making human wisdom not a boredom, but an ongoing interaction with the divine energies. And if you're interacting with the divine energies and they are infinite, then we can say that in this infinite, that there's no boredom in the infinite because it's continuously moving forward. The second question that is discussed, it's talking about uncertainty and randomness as suggested by this scientific perspective and how this relates to the core attributes that define humanity. So in my proposed integrated model, this perceived uncertainty or randomness is part of the environment in which the self, as defined by Minsky's model and Luhmann's systems theory, exists and evolves. This environment includes external factors and the divine energies, as I discussed earlier. So these core attributes that define humanity are the product of both the dynamic and adaptive processes of the self and the shaping influences of the divine energies. This does not render human wisdom meaningless, but rather situates it within a broader and richer context of selfhood, society, and divinity. Now, the third piece to this question, right? So we're really focusing here on how this gives meaning, how this works in human civilization, and how we can strive for consensus and stuff. So when I'm looking at this third question and how it relates to the God in concept, the synthesizing theological and scientific perspectives of something like Wolfgang Smith's physics and quantum mechanics from this Neoplatonic ontology, and then St. Maximus the Confessor. As I understand it, this aligns well with the integrated model that I've proposed, and humans and God do not so much emerge together, which is one of the things that I disagree with, is that humans exist in a continual dynamic interaction with human selfhood shaped by the internal mental processes and the divine energies. So this ability to chase and approach divine power is the process of theosis in Orthodox theology. Our transformative journey towards unity with God, as understood in Orthodox theology, this is about attaining divine, or this is not about attaining divine power in the sense of becoming God, but about growing in likeness to God. And if we take God as love, then we're encapsulating all of what we're growing in likeness to as love, which would answer all of the geopolitical problems. I mean, in a perfect world, it obviously would, but this is a fallen state. But as we strive towards this, if we were all saints, then we would have a wholly different world than we live in now. And so the essence of life's meaningfulness and driving force behind human civilization's strive for consensus can be encapsulated in simply saying, as we move towards theosis, as we move towards more participation and more relationality in our lives, then we will continue to increase and grow towards this consensus, thus saving the world from its own fallen state. So, and you can see the answers here. I guess I missed that slide. Good job, Joe. So in conclusion, this exploration of God we have navigated this intricate landscape of the mind. And I know this was brief and I didn't go into enough detail with everything, but I also want to make sure that we all have enough time here. But we've gone through this mind, the society and spirituality. We've looked at the deep insights into ontology and how it works in exemplified systems by Wolfgang Smith and St. Maximus the Confessor. This concept does not merely remain in the abstract realms of philosophy or theology. This permeates our daily lives, guiding an understanding of ourselves, our connection with the other, and our relationship with the divine. As we continue this journey in our life, I hope that everyone can embrace this dynamic interplay, recognizing that we are never isolated entities, but part of a greater tapestry woven by the divine energies. And this relationality that we have here, I think, is important, especially when we're looking at someone like Lucio Biguero's work on relational economics, which is also something I've been working on the side. And so really the point of this is to understand that everything exists in relation, and what I would say the basis for the relationality is the basis of the Trinity itself, because it is a relational being of non-being, I guess you could say. So that ends my my presentation. I don't know if anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns, or how we're going to go about going from here.
Okay, interesting. Gerard? Hello. I would like to hear from your comments before you forget them.
At the moment, I'm just thinking about the notion of the concept of God as an instruction, or as a metaphor to instruct me how to connect my inner thinking and the outside world. So that's the level at which I am.
Good, thank you. Lucas, are you there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so you have some video program, but do you have a slide to share with us?
I cannot access any slides on my mobile phone, unfortunately.
Okay.
But I've understand everything. I think so far, and I was delighted by what I heard. The only thing maybe my misery can add to this wonderful vision and conceptualization of God is that it does not work if you're trapped in a constant environment of fragmentization. And this is what is happening as the computer breaks down. And then just as we started, the iPad breaks down. So if you have to build up the systems over and over and get fragmentized, you cannot get this informative feedback that normally you would get in a natural environment. And I think that our problems of the mind also arise because we, as you know, we have this terrible lack of movement where we immobilize ourselves more and more. And through this immobilization, we are always trapped in the interaction with our electronic devices, which leads us to further fragmentization and makes us impossible to perceive the presence of God, the Gestaltgebend, the shape-giving presence and informative presence in our interactions, because our interactions are always focused on the machines which are fragmentized and increase this fragmentation the more we interact with a machine which are like a wrong model in that sense. The machines are really like the Babel, like the Tower to Babel. We try to connect, and the more we try to connect, the more new problems arise, the more new apps get involved. So it really fits perfectly together in how our understanding of God should naturally grow and also lead up to an understanding of love, which maybe I can share as one of the 8 dimensions of mystical experience, which are exactly the feelings we get when we feel access to this multidimensional presence. I was just searching this, but maybe we have a second speaker, I think I've heard, and I can go and see if I find